Welcome to the Higher Ed Geek Podcast, where each week we explore the impact of EdTech on the student experience with engaging, fun, and relevant conversations that honor the wide range of work happening all across the higher ed ecosystem. I'm your host, Dustin Ramsdell. I've been working in and around higher ed for the past decade, focused on student support and digital experiences. Join me every week for discussions with some of the best minds in education technology. The Higher Ed Geek Podcast is a part of the Enrollify podcast network, a robust collection of shows designed to help higher education professionals like you grow. Explore our other shows at enrollify.org or check out some of my personal favorites linked in the show notes below. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the leading AI-powered all-in-one student engagement platform helping institutions create meaningful, personalized, and engaging interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com. Welcome, everyone, to a super special episode of the Higher Ed Geek Podcast. We are here in beautiful Raleigh, North Carolina, here for the Engage Summit. First time for me here in Raleigh, and we're in a super cool space where we were able to find a relatively quiet space, but it is an active train station where part of the conference is happening, and there's like construction happening. So there's a lot of things happening. So we're going to make the most of it and everything, but super excited to have fellow Enrollify podcaster Shane here with me. So if you're kind of following along, this is the first episode that I am recording here in person at the Engage Summit. I'll have a few different episodes coming out, but yeah, super excited to talk with obviously everybody here, but especially record episodes with some of the other creators and folks that are here in person. So Shane, if you want to kick us off, just briefly introduce yourself, and then we'll go through, talking about your show and just the things that you're sort of experiencing digital transformation at your institution, but let people know who you are.
Yeah, thanks, Dustin, for having me. It's cool to be here in Raleigh. We just heard the train go by outside, so hopefully we don't get cut off, but good to be here. I'm Shane Baglini. I am the Senior Director of Marketing at Muhlenberg College, where I oversee our sort of strategic digital enrollment, recruitment marketing, grad and undergrad, adult, continuing ed. So it's quite a hefty portfolio. And I am also the host of Breaking Silos here on Enrollify, where we focus on partnerships between marketers and non-marketers from the same campus, talking about general collaboration or specific projects that they've worked on to sort of highlight. I think one of the pain points for a lot of people in higher ed on campus is feeling siloed and just showcasing the fact that there are so many opportunities for partnership across campus. And so I've learned a lot, and hopefully listeners have as well.
Yeah. I mean, it's I feel like I would just give kudos to Mallory and everything. Like the curation of the shows and the titling of them, it's just like they're just touching nerves and everything. It was sort of like, tactics and breaking down silos and everything else. But, I asked this of kind of everybody's like talking about the show. And I guess, obviously the title, I think, sort of carries a lot of weight there. Like it's pretty, telling of what the show's exploring and everything. But I guess just like, you're 8 episodes in, you've done some live episodes and everything. I think, all the creators that are here are going to have, at least an episode or two being recorded here. If you just want to just talk about the show, kind of how your thought process as you're curating the people to talk to and what to talk about, and then any reflections or anecdotes about just sort of entering into the podcasting world. It's always exciting for me to hear the folks who are sort of experiencing it for the first time, because I've done it for so long. It feels just kind of a routine at this point. But
yeah, I will say that the inspiration for the show was kind of twofold. I have to give credit to Jamie Hunt, who is also here at the conference. She ends her show every episode with "Let's go bust some silos," and I think it hits home for marketers especially. But it got me thinking when Mallory and the Enrollify team came to me and asked, "Do you want to host a podcast?" I thought, well, maybe, but what can be interesting? What can I do differently? And so I thought, what if we expanded a little bit from marketing and talked about different partnerships across campus? And really the thing that drove that home for me was I was at AMA last year in Chicago, and I was looking at the guest list to see what kind of partnerships there were. And there was 2 presenters from Kent State University talking about a pretty robust, huge mental health on-campus campaign that they rolled out. And they were my first guest on the show. I went up to them at the conference and said, I'm going to have the show. You guys need to be my first guest. Because it was it was something that was for the general good of campus and students, and not KPIs and metrics and app starters and all of those things that we need to worry about. But it was just so refreshing to see this group of people come together around something for the greater good of their students, their community. And that really is what kicked off the show. And so, we focused on a lot of different things. We've talked to a president and a marketer who had Joe Biden on campus. We've talked to folks from the University of Arizona about their TEDx events. I've talked to cabinet members about partnering together and why that's important. And so, we try to run the gamut on the ways that marketers and non-marketers are partnering across campus, which are, despite what we maybe lament about these at these conferences, is numerous and is robust and is really, really cool to see.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think, again, it's such a great concept. And I think kind of giving yourself that freedom to talk about things I feel like they might be sort of ill-fitted for other, or it's like a TEDx event. And like, that's a really awesome initiative. And, trying to kind of find that angle, I guess, of like, well, how is this sort of just a thing that's important to kind of raise the profile or, of the institution and everything and build up more brand awareness, whatever it might be.
And I will say that, the episodes focus on like a specific project, like the TEDx one, for example. But I think more importantly, the theme is actionable steps that people can take to increase partnerships across campus. And we try to focus on that on each episode about how did you go about doing this work. At this conference, I'm going to be talking to Don Hunt from NC State here in Raleigh, who's been doing a lot of work on their campus around this, and learning from him about what can other people in leadership positions or not, like where can they start? What type of person is a good person to break silos, and just resources for people. And that's really been, I think, the biggest learning for me is that there are these really impactful strategic ways to partner across campus that I think, in the day-to-day of our work, we just get bogged down in the minutia and don't have time to come up for air and say, well, this person across campus is doing it this way, or we're doing the same thing and we're replicating processes. And so hopefully people are taking a kind of a step back and seeing that.
Yeah. And I think just the kind of final word on that is like the fact that you're making space to talk about kind of the mechanics of it. Cause I think a lot of, in the idea of like, like Jamie is sort of like, let's go break down silos. And the idea of like, hopefully then you hop over to your show to like figure out how and what the impact of like doing that is. And like those sort of things. Cause I think a lot of people just like kind of talk a big game about that or being like, we should do it because, everybody hates that, right? That we don't collaborate, we don't communicate, we don't work together and all that. But like showing really good examples of it actually happening and then talking about sort of, the way that people went about doing that is great. But what I want to try to ask everybody is sort of an open-ended question, and then it will be kind of the, we follow the thread wherever it kind of takes us. But like, I'm always just curious, like we're just in this moment of digital transformation for institutions. Everybody's kind of at a different point in their journey and like what kind of they're grappling with, how they're sort of developing their strategy and maybe thinking a few years down the line, everything. So for your position at this time at Muhlenberg, like, what are you kind of facing right now around digital transformation and how it's sort of like impacting and influencing your work and decision making?
Yeah, I mean, so for me personally, the biggest way is the way that students are interacting with us, I would say. In the graduate school at Muhlenberg, we use Element 451 as our CRM. And the amount of stealth applicants that we see, people just start applying without ever interacting with us or at least raising their hand, is increasing for sure. And so, we're thinking about how important tools like our website are. We're in the midst of kicking off a redesign of that site, but just understanding how students are interacting with us and the fact that the information that students are looking for has to be readily available. And the idea of a form fill out to get information on a program is kind of going away and it isn't quite as reliable a way to get people in the funnel. So that's one. And then I would say, specifically for Muhlenberg and the graduate school, embracing the idea of distance learning and flexibility. We worked with faculty for a long time to get all of our graduate and adult learning programs to be fully online, and those are going to roll out starting this fall. And it's a big step for Muhlenberg. It's a traditional liberal arts institution, great residential undergraduate experience. I have nothing but good things to say about that. But we're sort of getting into this new era of the adult learner or the continuing learner that wants flexibility, that wants to be online. Some still, we still have the high impact in-person things that are great. But really, that's a maturing process for Muhlenberg because it's taken a long time to get there. And we didn't really need it before the COVID pandemic. And that really brought about, as it has for many, that brought about the need for that change.
Yeah, I think that in many different ways, like reflect back for higher ed as like a watershed moment where like so many, if they were naysayers or whatever, like they at least saw that it was possible, saw that you could do digital education quality and, all that. So it's like that part of it where like a lot of institutions, it was sort of like the rubber band was stretched beyond its limit. So they're like kind of, retracting back to where they were. But I think, yeah, like what a lot of people are acknowledging, or I guess just seeing that the pattern is continuing, is like a lot of those small private liberal arts schools are the ones that are really struggling and all that. And if like they aren't making really strategic investments in digital education and just sort of their whole digital experience and everything, it's like that's when you're starting to really see like kind of the winners and losers really, tangibly, and sort of, unfortunately with like closures and all that sort of stuff, or having to make like massive cuts or whatever. It's just like, it's really, kind of coming to a T here. But I guess what I thought of kind of like didn't dawn on me until recently, I guess, like all the sort of like other ripple effects of something like building out your digital education portfolio. And I guess like with your kind of position is that like, you obviously have to then just like change how you talk about it and market these programs, where it's like, it's a good thing, but it is sort of like, well, we got to have to kind of really like full reset on like how we sort of frame these programs and, all of that. So I guess, can you speak to that, I guess, of just how that sort of like one sort of digital transformation is then sort of like begetting all these other sort of like, changes and adjustments and all that?
Yeah, I mean, the amount of emails and web copy that we had to change was daunting. But I think beyond that, thinking about our geography of where we're marketing, we were a hybrid offering mostly. So there was, like 2 or 3 times per semester you would come to campus. The rest were online, but still very regional to local market. That there's still a lot of that's going to stay the same, but also think about how can we strategically take advantage of pockets of recruitment that our undergraduate student body is successful in. Where is our alumni base? How can we build out things like 4+1 programs that would, keep students on campus or allow them to then learn remotely as they go into their career? And, having to balance the absolutely wanting as many students as we could possibly get, but also having to balance, real things like the budget, right? We don't have the budget for a national campaign. Very, very few schools do. So being really strategic about how we're building our audience and working with partners to get data on students that would be good fits for our programs based on level of their career, kind of seniority, job titles, industries. And so having to be hyper focused on the right fit for our student. And it's a balance. It's a balance to say we need to enroll students. However, we've got to do it in this really strategic way.
Yeah, I think it's just like really interesting stuff. And what you mentioned about the website, I'm sure, is also sort of interladen, just sort of like how you're, obviously presenting yourself. You have to update the website to reflect all those sort of programmatic changes and everything. I guess just sort of the final word on this, like, can you speak about just sort of what the decision-making or sort of strategy that you're approaching, like the website redevelopment, like, yeah, like what are some of the things that you're like, oh, we definitely need to, change this, take this out, add this in, or whatever? Like, what are some of the examples, I guess, of what you're doing there?
Yeah. So the website piece of things is really the capstone of a multi-year kind of process for Muhlenberg to sort of modernize our marketing. We did some research with a research group for our undergraduate populations that has really guided our last couple of years of marketing in terms of messaging. Now this is really the cherry on top to rebuild a website. It's interesting because right after this I have a meeting about what are the things that we absolutely need on the new site. And for me, I think, and listening to the keynote this morning, I think it's can be more simple than we make it out to be. I think people just want a good experience where they can find what they're looking for. So to me, that means better search functionality, consistent, easy to use navigation, consistent page structure, where I know what I'm getting on each page. Each program page is going to have certain information. And that's not going to deviate by program. So that's on us to make sure we have all that. But I think a consistent, easy, approachable experience, and one that, people have expectations of how they engage with products, companies, and the bar is not being set by higher ed, right? It's being set by Apple and Amazon and Walmart and all these giant companies that we can learn from that say, this is what our customer, I know people are going to freak out at that word. This is what people expect when they get to a website to make an investment in something like education. and how can we give them the information that they need as quickly as possible and as frictionless as possible. And so those to me are the biggest questions. Like, how do we make this as seamless as we can for the student now and 10 years from now? Because these are big investments, and we've got to think in that frame. Like, how can we adapt this piece of this, our most important marketing tool? How can we adapt that over the next decade?
Yeah. I mean, it's like kind of this like renaissance for websites. I feel like we're like, I don't know, I guess maybe people didn't think that they were like not useful, but maybe we were like underestimating how useful they are. And, it can be trimming the hedges, taking things away, making it more lean and, simple. And it can be adding things. It can be, like you said, like a really robust like search functionality or, some sort of like chat bot or whatever. Like it can be, adding and subtracting at the same time. And as long as you're being really thoughtful about like, okay, let's not just add all the things under the sun, that becomes kind of clunky and maybe like slow loading and stuff for the website and stuff. But yeah, all really cool stuff. And I guess, that is, one of many things I guess like that you're working on and engaging with. So we're going to end all these conversations on an optimistic note. Like, what are you looking forward to in your work? Anything else, I guess, coming up that sort of got you excited? Because I feel like for me, it does just generally feel like, obviously, there's definitely going to be a lot of tough conversations ahead and a lot of hard work to do. But it's like, we're in such a unique time to have sort of an opportunity to sort of like, take on this challenge and really, transform our institution. So, in that spirit, like things you're looking forward to in your work that are coming up at some point.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing that I could think of is that I am somebody who enjoys a challenge. I'm a competitive person. I was at the arcade thing last night doing some Pop-A-Shot, trying to beat some other people. But this is really the first time that Muhlenberg is really strategically, aggressively marketing itself. And I think a lot of liberal arts schools are probably in a similar boat where it's been for how, the existence of the institution. We've, got a great reputation. It's a great education. Our alumni base is strong, but we're obviously approaching the enrollment cliff and we're there. I mean, we're at the cliff. So the challenge of building that and sort of beating those odds is exciting for me. We beat our yield total by, I think, like 7% this fall. So that's great. And so I think the tools are there to do something really special and to be a part of building that, not from the ground up, but really giving it a boost is exciting.
Yeah, well, I hear the train coming, so I feel like that's our signal to wrap this up. But really great stuff, and just really appreciate the opportunity to talk with you in person and to have this opportunity to hang out with so many amazing people at the Engage Summit. And hopefully folks follow along with all these episodes and all the other great episodes from all the other shows that are happening here at the Summit. But I'll see you around here, and stay tuned for more great episodes coming out from the Engage Summit.
Thanks, Dustin.
The Hired Geek Podcast is a part of the Enrollify Podcast Network. If you like this podcast, chances you'll like all the other Enrollify shows too. The podcast network is growing constantly, and we've got a plethora of marketing, enrollment, and higher technology shows that are jam-packed with stories, ideas, and frameworks all designed to empower you to be a better hired professional. Our shows help you find your next big idea and feature a selection of the industry's best as your host. Learn from people like Jamie Hunt, Seth Odell, Dave Kibbolds, and Eddie Francis, as well as so many other of your favorite leaders in higher education. Enrollify is made possible by the support of Element 451, a leading AI-powered, all-in-one student engagement platform helping institutions create meaningful, personalized, engaging interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com.